December 14th, 1991. I had just graduated from college in South Carolina. And, I think you're a Southerner, so you understand, when you're dating the same person that you were dating in college, your mom's like picking out your China patterns and you're getting ready to march down that aisle. I ended up moving. I'm from Virginia and ended up moving to Charleston, South Carolina, because that's where my college sweetheart was from. And, just having graduated, I had double degrees in communications and graphic design and my big fat diploma. And I was mopping floors in a sign company, because that was the only job I could get. And so it was our Christmas party, and I was driving to the party, on that afternoon of December 14th. It was hot. It was Charleston. I'd say Texas would be kind of the same. I was wearing Bermuda shorts and a Santa Claus t-shirt and a big jingle bell.
Yeah.
And so I had gotten just less than 2 miles away from my apartment, and I was at a major intersection. So Highway 17, that runs through Charleston. It's a major, lanes, many lanes this way, many lanes this way. And I was coming from a side road, and I was sitting at the traffic light there. And, little did I know at that stage that everything was getting ready to change. And so as I sat at the light, just minding my own business, the light finally turns green. And so I had to make my way across several lanes of traffic in order to make my left-hand turn to go towards town. And so I'd made it across the first couple of lanes. And next thing, I turned and looked, and I could see a car just barreling towards me. And it was in that moment that time literally stood still. It sounds so cliche, but that is exactly what happened. Everything ground to a halt and freezes. And you suddenly realize, oh, I'm getting ready to die. And it was so familiar and it was so routine. Like, you've done this before. It was just really, it wasn't a big deal. There was no shock, no panic, no horror, and everything is stopped. And all of a sudden, what was really bizarre is I realized, I'm in control of how this plays out. So I realized that I have a choice. I could stay in the body, experience the impact of the vehicle, and then go, or I could come out of my body before I'm struck and then go. And so with that kind of feeling of, oh my gosh, I've done this so many times, I don't think I need to get hit and feel that, that's going to hurt because he's going fast.
Sure.
And so I make that decision, and next thing I know, there's a sound, and this sound is literally the foundation of why I do all my work in frequency and healing, because it was a drone, a low drone. And I recognized that sound was literally what attached me, the real me, to this body and to this earth plane. And so as that sound is kind of like a wah, wah, I live in Ireland. I love pub music. I play the bodhrán, the round drum. My favorite trad session instrument is the Ilian pipes, which are like the elbow bagpipes. And so the bagpipes make a drone when the air is filling the bag, and it's like this amazing wah. And this really good session is coming. And I love that sound. And so this is what it was like. And so there's this vibration, this sound. And next thing, whoop, I'm out of the body. And as soon as I'm up and I'm looking down, everything speeds back up, just like that. And so I now am witnessing my own death. This was what was so cool about the whole thing. It's not like, oh gosh, I woke up and I'd been dead and I saw the light. And I came out in order to witness my own death, which was so cool. It was such a different perspective. And so as I'm looking down, I see the car speed up, and there's an 81-year-old man who's driving. He had almost taken a couple out. He very seriously injured a couple earlier in the summer. He should have had his license taken off, but obviously he still had one last hurrah, which was to help me with this experience. And so he blew through that red light going 75 miles an hour, and he T-boned me. And so when he hit my car and my car folded in half, the real me, is watching this body. The head goes through the window. My neck breaks. The seat folds up under me. The glass blows out, and the car is spinning around the intersection. And I cared about it about as much as this bottle of water right here.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so amazing because you're watching as an observer now of the experience. And I kind of liken that, I've written 10 books, and it's like writing books about your own story is like taking yourself out of the trauma of your story and actually watching as an observer and really being able to celebrate. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. Wow, that was so hard, but you did it. And it really is a unique perspective when you're writing about the things that have happened to you, because you get to witness yourself as that observer. So dying is kind of the same way. All of a sudden you're out and you're looking down and you're going, oh yeah, that body's not me. Oh my gosh, I was always looking in the mirror to see if my butt was too big. And, I'm like, that's not even me.
Mm.
And you have that instant remembering, and you're in that space and you still know who you are. You're still aware of everything that's ever happened to you. Now you're just very calmly and very quietly observing. And so I was so grateful that I got to have the experience that way. Because listen, I've been on this circuit for a long time. So I've literally heard every NDE story out there. And I feel very, very blessed, and it's very unique kind of to have witnessed it this way. And, that's because I needed that. It's not because I'm so wonderful or fabulous or, I'm so evolved and magical that way. It's because there was something in the actual death process that I still needed. And this is why I tell people, even up to the very last breath, everything that you're doing counts. And you're doing it for yourself and for your own growth and for your own progression. And so I, as a preacher's daughter from the South, I was literally a preacher's kid and had grown up with a very rigid set of my parents' belief systems that never really gelled with me. And so in one split second, everything that I kind of thought to be true became true for me. And it was a most wonderful validation of just following my gut, my heart, and being who I am. And that kind of instant shattering of going, oh, the boxes are there in order to help us find ourselves. And so we have this really bad habit of judging the box. So I'm in the box or I'm out of the box. And we always make being out of the box like we're so much more evolved, or that the boxes are there for a reason. That's the beauty of the earth experience. I love a box, but I became suddenly aware in that moment that I wasn't that box, nor was I that body. And it was just incredible. So I'm there hovering and watching this thing unfold. And so, as you can imagine, the cars finally come to a stop. There's glass everywhere. I'm trapped. I look like a little puppet trapped to the seat. And, and there she was, dead. Mm-hmm. And so I get to watch everybody else grind to a halt, because now they're witness as well, but they're still in the body. So they are witnessing through those five senses and through the emotional body mm-hmm. that is unique to being human. And to observe them in terror over what's happened to me when I'm not experiencing or feeling the terror. Oh my gosh, it was so wild. And so, as luck would have it, a girl that I went to college with, and I didn't go to college in that town, and Charleston at the time was about 350,000 people. She happened to be a couple of cars behind me. And I don't even know why she was there. She was from Charleston, but why she happened to be at that same stoplight at that same time, it changed her life as well, because I got to watch her recognize me. Mm. And that was wild. So I got to experience someone that I had known there and feel the emotional state that she was now in when she suddenly recognizes, oh my gosh, I know that car. Oh my gosh, I know that girl. And it was incredible. So you're suddenly having all these perspective changes simultaneously. And this is really important because I'm getting ready to move then into a realm where my understanding of time and space is about to completely change. So I watched her come up to the car. I watched a woman who was a witness to the accident come up and put her name and phone number. So imagine you've got like a dead person in the car. I always thought this is so wild. I'm dead. I'm in the car and all the windows are blown out. And she comes up and puts her name and phone number on the passenger side seat and then runs away. And I'm watching this. And I was like, even there, I'm going, okay, that's interesting. And then I see a uniform, and the uniform comes in and reaches across and turns the engine of the car off so that it doesn't explode. And then all of a sudden there's a new noise. So that low bagpipe drone sound is now, I've always called it the music of the spheres. You know, it was a symphony, a celestial symphony, because I have never, and I'm totally into frequency and music and vibration and all, nothing close. There is nothing here that could replicate that sound. And God knows I've tried. It was incredible. I became that sound. So this is that transformation where you're kind of blowing out of 3D past 4D and into 5D. And so that sound is what makes that happen. It's that raising of the vibration. It's the molecules are moving faster at that stage. But you're still completely cohesive and coherent as a being. You know who you've been, and then you know, oh, I know who I've been way before this person. And all of a sudden, the kid from the South, who's a preacher's daughter, is realizing, oh gosh, we've lived before. Oh yeah. You know, this wouldn't even have been a concept in my world. I wouldn't even have known the word reincarnation at that stage of my life. So it was really, really fascinating to watch myself go through this space. And so a lot of my fellow NDE folks would talk about the tunnel of light at that space. And I think that's what happened. So mine was more a tunnel of sound. It was a vibration, a transformation from being in a lower vibe where I could still be present in the earth realm, and then moving out of that space and landing in another. So that's how it happened for me. And I think that's why it's so much fun to hear different people's stories and different people's experiences, because, you know, no two are alike. There's a lot of similarities, but everybody based on whatever it is they needed to do or needed to understand. Because remember, there's one thing we all have in common. All of us came back to tell the tale. So we only went so far. And, you know, I think it's really important to know how, because some people have very scary experiences and some people have, you know, the most incredible. But one thing that's the same with all of us is we're all changed when we come back. And I have friends that have been through the experiences who've gone into very deep, dark depressions. For me, I was like, oh my God, give me a rooftop. I need to shout and tell everybody it's okay. We're okay. Take a breath. You set this up. Everything's going to be fine. Stop worrying about the freaking water bill. Do you know, like that was me. Where my friend Peter, who I speak with all the time, he went into a dark depression. He was absolutely horrified that he chose to come back. And then he worked through a process that has become his life's work, where he helps other people through the depression process, because he talks about how he got himself out of that and into the light. And so, you know, everybody has a different experience for a reason. So when I land in that space, when I've gone through that transformation and into that sound, this was so cool because the atmosphere, wherever I was in that in-between space, was palpable. I was part of it. It's the best way I can describe it. I was in it, but not of it. And as I was moving around and adjusting, I'm just by the second, I'm becoming more comfortable and realizing, oh yeah, this is my natural state. Oh, I remember this. There's no pain. Remember, I'm freshly dead. You know, my neck is broken. I can't feel any of that, nor do I pine away for that. And this is where I've said this a million times, but I'm saying it 1,000,001 because this is so, so important. In that moment, when I realized that I am now separated from that life I've just left, from that body that had just carried me 21 years through, I liken that to a hot summer day, and you walk in the back door and you've been out in the garden or you've been mowing or doing the flowers or whatever, and you're nasty and hot and sweaty, and you peel the clothes off and you leave them by the washing machine and you go get in the best shower ever. The last thing you're thinking about is the dirty clothes next to the washing machine. And that's the best way I can describe the feeling. You know, you literally think about the body the same way you would the pair of jeans. I'm not pining away while I'm in my fabulous shower for the pair of jeans. And the body is the same way. I'm grateful. Thanks a lot for what you did. But, oh, I liked that body. That was fun. It was like, oh, I liked my 1969 Monza that I used to drive in high school. But I don't sit here pining for it. It was just a vehicle. And so this is very much so what that felt like. And so, you're in that moment and I'm just absorbing everything that's around me, but I'm also having a lot of, aha, oh yeah, oh yeah. And it was like I was becoming super smart. Mm-hmm. So, I was remembering everything that my original state remembers and realizing how much I had to dumb myself down for the experience of being human. And it's a unique and wonderful experience. And I don't mean to belittle or make it smaller than what it is. It's just that it is such a great challenge because you're literally leaving this divine, omnipotent, eternal presence that you are and stuffing yourself into this little meat suit and giving yourself 5 senses as a consolation prize and getting the amnesia that doesn't allow you to remember. You might have fleeting glimpses or little moments of, but you never get to stay in that state while you're here, because then what's the point of being here? And so you're kind of back in that space and going, oh my God, yes. And people will ask then, at that point, did you not go, well, what in the world is it all for? Why would you do that? Why would you leave that perfect space and come here? And the best way to describe that is, all of us have just gone through a horrific last couple of years of loss of mobility and freedom and movement and, being able to go do things. And so a lot of people have been sitting at home watching a lot of Netflix. And so they might have upgraded those surround sounds and maybe got that big 72-inch, screen TV, and they can pause that channel and go to the bathroom when they want, and they can get stuff out of the fridge. And it's a great experience. And they're at home and they're in their jammies and their shoes are off, and it's great. Now, imagine you've been locked up for 2 years and everything opens back up and your best friend calls, oh my God, the new James Bond movie is fabulous. Let's go. And you're like, okay. And you get dressed and you're in that anticipation of getting ready to go into the theater. And then you walk in and the first thing that hits you is the smell of the popcorn and the sweets. And there's people chatting. You've been by yourself for the last 2 years, and you walk in there and you go into the cinema and boom, now you're in the movie and it's on this giant screen and your bestie is sitting next to you and people are laughing out loud and they're crying or they're like tense and you can feel the electricity in the air. Which one of the two experiences is better?
Well, of course, the movie theater.
Maybe it is, but maybe for the introvert, it's the at-home experience, right? They're just two different experiences. So when someone says, why would you arrive in that space and then go, oh my God, yeah, this is who we are and what we're, why would you have come to Earth? Because there are those who enjoy the experience and recognize the growth that confining ourselves into something that is quite limited when we're unlimited is a great opportunity to fine-tune skills, to grow, to evolve. And that's why we come here. So I just wanted to throw that in because it's a question I get asked all of the time. Why would we do this to ourselves? If it's so miserable here, because some of us don't see it that way. What some people see as suffering, other people see as experience. And so it's just all about how you approach it, which is why I'm telling everybody, guys, enjoy the experience. Stop getting caught in the suffering. Enjoy what you chose for yourself because you chose it. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. So there I am in that space, realizing all this stuff. And all of a sudden that atmosphere starts taking shape in front of me. And I'm like, okay, this is fun. And two beings literally form in front of me. Like Hollywood couldn't touch it. They are forming out of the literal air, the atmosphere there. And they just sit there. And I'm looking and I'm like, I know you. And they wait very patiently. And I'm like, I know you, but I can't think of who they are. I really couldn't. I don't know if I was, overwhelmed or what was going on. And they waited. And they waited until all of a sudden that light bulb clicked. And I was like, oh my God, these are my guardians. We have guardians. Guys, we have guardians. All of us. There's not one of you out there watching this who is alone. You might feel alone. You might feel at the bottom of the barrel. You might feel like you've been completely abandoned. You are never, ever, ever, ever alone. And just remember that, because you might hit a dark space sometime. You might need to know that they're there for you. They are there, and they're watching everything that you do, everything that you've evolved through, everything that you've learned. And they're there whispering in your ear, giving you that nudge. And, it's like your hotline to the heavens. Every one of us has guardians. And the interesting thing about guardians is that they chop and change. It's not, those two came forward and I knew they'd always been with me, but there are others. And so at different periods of time in your life. So, when I went through the experience of being as a 17-year-old, the guardians that would have shown up and given me the support and strength to know that happened to my body, but not me. And I moved through it, and I've become a great teacher to those who have gone through similar experiences and who could have gone this way and become victims of that, or this way and become experiencers of something that made them who they are today. The guardian that was there for that is probably not the same guardian that was there when my dog died when I was 12. The grief associated with that and the unfolding and discovering of my own inner strength, two different jobs. And so it's really interesting to know that as we go through different things in our life, different beings will come and step forward. They're like experts in certain areas or certain sets of vibrations that are there to support us. So that was really cool. So these had been with me since the dawn of time. They came in the appearance of very elderly men. I loved, since the time I was a child, I've loved old people always. Like, my parents thought it was really weird. I wanted to go to the nursing home and hang out with old people instead of playing with my friends. So I was that kid. Deep and utter respect and reverence for elderly. And so, of course, my guides would come in the guise of elderly. And so we went straight from that space into what was like an IMAX cinema, a 360-degree experience where I went through a life review. And again, another cliche thing. And it's so hard for those of us who have been in that kind of experience. It's like, we don't have any other words to use. And it's like, yawn. Okay. But it really was like being in a 360 room. And this is where my perception of time imploded, because I am here. I'm surrounded by the just absolute love and grace and unconditionality of these beings, my cheerleaders who were there with me. And, all I needed was the box of popcorn to watch my life unfold in front of me. And guess what happened? It wasn't chronological. On the 360 screen, I'm 4 years old, getting lost in Virginia Beach and having my first past life recollection in that lifetime. I am 20 years old, cheerleading at a basketball game in my college. I am 12 years old and Otto von Bismarck III is dying, my dog. And I am 17 years old and I'm going through that experience in college. And I'm, on and on and on it went. And so I am sitting here going, wait a minute, this is concurrent. This is simultaneous. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, this is simultaneous. And you can't come back into the world that we're living in now and ever be the same again when you have experienced the simultaneous nature of what it means to be alive. Because now you understand how the different timelines work, how the multi-dimensional aspect of who we are, how time travel works. You get it, because are there chronological timelines? Sure there are. But also there are simultaneously 360 timelines where everything's happening at once. And all of a sudden it makes sense how we, as fractals of the same whole, and in this one little tiny Earth experience where there are 8 point what billion of us, who are fractals of the same energy, are all over this globe experiencing all things at once. So it really is true. I am you and you are me. And I am seeing the world through your eyes right now. And as we share this interaction here, you're getting a chance to relive and be with me as I with you are watching you experience me. And it just all suddenly makes sense. And it's incredible. And it's really, really hard to get upset about stuff. That's the one thing that near death did to me, is I like, I'm a parent and I want to get mad at my kids and I really can't. And so I have to pretend a lot in order to give them that experience and to be able to give them the appropriate feedback. But they know it's a joke. Mm. So, yeah. So that was kind of the big reveal.
Did you just pop back into your body, or did they tell you, okay, you've got to go back now?
Yeah. So they didn't tell me anything. I decided in that moment, and I was ready to go. And I knew, I'm like, I can go back in that same body, right? Yes. Okay, well, I'm doing that. And they said, okay, if you choose to do that, we're going to be there with you, but we're going to give you a little upgrade. I'm like, okay, not thinking in that moment how badly it's going to hurt to have a broken neck and to be told you can't have kids and to have all the bits. And, I was a mess. And so I'm like, yeah, go team. Yeah, let's do it. Send me back. Put me back in, coach. So I didn't realize that promise they were making, how important that was. Because boy, did I need the upgrade. So they raised the bar and they basically said, you've made it to 21 and you do realize, I realized in that moment that the reason the whole accident took place is I'd come in to this world with extraordinary gifts that I had never used properly. The title of my first book is called Promised. They changed it to Promised by Heaven. It was called Promised initially. And the reason it was called that was my parents were in their 40s when they had me. And so I was a surprise. And when they went to the doctor sat them both down and said, unfortunately, you have the German measles, Helen. And so you're in your first trimester. So I need you guys to understand that this baby's not going to be okay. And you need to just go ahead and accept that. And you got a long road ahead of you. And of course, my parents were devastated. And, they were given a very, very poor prognosis, which in that day, that was a very, very poor prognosis. So not long after, my father, remember the Southern Baptist minister, has what he called a celestial visit. And it was always such an interesting choice of words because, you totally expect him to be like, oh, angels appeared, the angels of the Lord. And no, these were celestial beings with no wings. Right. So I'm like, hello, extraterrestrial, interdimensional traveling beings, whatever you were. And so they came in and told my father. So he'd never had any kind of experience like this whatsoever. So you can imagine that blew his socks off, right? So they're like, not only is this baby going to be okay, but she is going to come in a little different. So imagine this is 1968. There's no ultrasound. Like they've now announced to him that I'm a girl and that I'm going to be weird. So when I was a little kid, anytime anything happened, my dad would pick me up, brush me off, and he'd always remember, you're promised. You were promised. And that's how that kind of came to pass. And so my folks are like hanging around, waiting to see what's going on, And then I had at the age of 4, the big reveal, which was my parents sat me down for the kitchen table talk, I call it, where dad called me in and he sat in that big booming voice and he said, Sugar, do you know the difference between alive and dead? I'm 4. I'm like, is there a wrong answer to this? What, I guess so. Because now they were freaked out because I talked incessantly and nonstop about my very best friend in the world, who was my grandfather, Dr. Garland Clark, and we called him Judge. And this was my mom's dad. And Judge did this and Judge did that. And Judge told me this and Judge took me here. And I got the talk finally, and my dad has to reveal that Judge had been dead since I was 1. So now it's starting to get fun. And now my dad is realizing, oh, this is what they were talking about. And so like I'm coming in, I'm toddling in going, Mr. Jones is going to die next Wednesday. And my dad's like, okay, and he would, So it was quite an interesting childhood. And so I had these amazing gifts and I could see things before they would happen and I'd dream things. Well, then you go through the awkward teenage years and, my parents are trying to protect me so we don't talk about these things outside of the circle, which didn't include my siblings even. So you can imagine how difficult that was because I looked like a big fat liar because my parents wanted to keep this very confined and contained. And little did they know I'd go global. And you can't hold that kind of stuff in for too long. So by the time I got through my teenage years and into college, literally all I would do was I would know the score of the basketball game before it would happen. Or a friend of mine would lose something and I'd dream it and I could tell them where it was. And this was me helping humanity. That was it. So the car accident had been put in place that if I had reached adulthood, the age of 21, if I had reached adulthood and I was not using those gifts in stewardship, that I was giving myself my own swift kick up the butt in order to change path. And that's exactly what happened. So I made that decision to go back in. And, there I went in breakneck speed and literally woke up with a broken neck on the pavement. And I even tried, I can remember this so well. And it's so crazy when you think about it. Like I'm smashed. And like they've had to do the jaws of life and, I'm dead. And next thing I stand up. Can you even imagine what those people must have been going through? Right? But I collapsed, of course, straight back down and then I'm unconscious. And it was so weird in that moment. It was like, I needed them to know I'm not dead. And so it took everything I had in me to pull myself up and then boom, I was gone. And then I remember waking up one time in the ambulance and this lady is in there. She's stroking my hair. It's okay. You're going to be okay, honey. You're okay. And I'm going, I've already been dead. I'm not dying, And thus began a very fantastic journey.